in the headlines of this hour on VTV News. Prime Minister calls for stronger efforts to complete key transport projects. And specialized policies are activated to spur development of Central Highlands. In our world news, G7 summit discusses global hot issues.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Good morning. It is 8 a.m. local time in Hanoi and you're watching VTV News. I'm Huyền Trần with the top stories. A working session between State President Tô Lâm and all bodies in the People's Court system was held on Friday morning, with 700 joining online. The state president highly values the activities of the People's Court system, especially at the Monitoring and Operations Center. It is considered the digital brain of the court system and also a breakthrough in realizing the parties' and states' policies on digital transformation and implementing judicial reform tasks. This is also important in fulfilling international commitments to switching to electronic-based court administration. On average, the number of cases going to court has increased by 8% annually. This year alone, the number of cases received has increased by nearly 40,000 compared to the same period last year, but only about 63% have been adjudicated. The rate of convictions and decisions annulled or amended due to subjective reasons is 0.82%, meeting the requirements of the National Assembly. The state leader believes that the quality of judicial officials is the deciding factor in the quality of prosecutions and the legal system. So he hopes the court system will continue building a team of officials with strong integrity to safeguard the country's law. State President Tô Lâm met with a delegation of esteemed individuals from border and island areas attending the second The Fulcrum of the Village program on Friday. The state president affirmed that the party and state always prioritize the unity and solidarity of ethnic groups, recognizing their crucial strategic role. He emphasized that border and island areas serve as the front line in protecting the country. He also noted the implementation of priority policies and resource allocation for the development of these areas. The state leader urged ministries, localities, and relevant agencies to continue implementing the party and state's ethnic work policies and guidelines. He stressed the importance of caring for the material and spiritual well-being of ethnic groups, enhancing the role of esteemed individuals in safeguarding the nation and contributing to national defense and security consolidation. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính, head of the State Steering Committee for Key National Transport Projects, highlighted finalizing 3,000 kilometers of expressways before December 31st, 2025, when chairing the 12th session of the State Steering Committee on Friday. More to follow.
According to reports and opinions expressed at the meeting, the total number of key transportation projects in the steering committee's list is 40, with 92 component projects in 3 sectors, including roads, railways, and aviation across 48 provinces and cities. After 11 sessions, Vietnam has completed 674 kilometers of expressways, bringing the total length of expressways to more than 2,000 kilometers. An additional 19 kilometers of the Diễn Châu Bãi Vọt section will be put into operation this June. The Prime Minister asked localities to speed up construction and complete site clearance while protecting affected people's legal and legitimate rights and interests. Localities proactively handled issues within their authority regarding investment procedures for PPP projects with support from the Ministry of Planning and Investment. Regarding construction materials, the government leader assigned Deputy Prime Minister Trần Hồng Hà to direct and fully resolve problems in projects in the Mekong Delta and the Ho Chi Minh City's Ring Road 3 in the next 5 days.
We should make efforts to address obstacles faced by investors, contractors, and relevant agencies. we should be determined to fulfill goals and complete the projects on schedule. I asked the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Home Affairs to review the work and launch a 500-day movement to complete 3,000 kilometers of highways at the end of 2025, coinciding with the 14th National Party Congress.
The Prime Minister has assigned specific tasks to each ministry, department and locality to prepare for investment procedures in key transportation projects nationwide. The Prime Minister urged that work be completed promptly on numerous large projects this year, such as Component Project 3 of Hanoi's Ring Road 4 and other important expressway projects.
National Assembly Chair Trần Thanh Mẫn met with 100 outstanding people in the voluntary blood donation campaign in Hanoi on Friday, the 20th anniversary of World Blood Donor Day. The top legislator expressed his gratitude to the exemplary donors, representing millions of voluntary blood donors nationwide. He was particularly impressed by the people who had donated blood hundreds of times, actively mobilizing their families, friends, and communities to participate in blood donation. The National Assembly Chair suggested the leadership of party committees and authorities at all levels pay extra attention to ensuring blood donations are sustainable, safe, and quality blood sources. He believed that voluntary blood donors nationwide will continue to adhere to the spirit of humanity, sharing their blood for the community and society. The Ho Chi Minh City Department of Transport has unveiled a draft report outlining 3 potential waterway connections between the city and Long Thành Airport. The report is currently open for feedback from relevant stakeholders. However, according to experts, these options must be researched thoroughly to ensure feasibility.
The first option proposes using high-speed boats to transport passengers from Bạch Đằng Wharf in District 1 to Swan Bay Marina in Nhơn Trạch District, Đồng Nai Province. The second option suggests establishing a cross-river passenger wharf from Bình Khánh, Nhà Bè to Nhơn Trạch, Đồng Nai. This proposal involves constructing a new wharf on the Đồng Nai side and enhancing road infrastructure. The third option focuses on maximizing the capacity of the existing Cát Lái ferry. This proposal aims to provide a convenient transport solution, especially in the absence of the Cát Lái bridge. Experts believe that the first option is the most feasible.
Among these options, the route from Bạch Đằng Wharf has the most stable number of passengers despite its longer distance. Tours are also established along the route.
Experts also say that opening these transportation routes requires careful planning to ensure synchronous infrastructure developments.
Services must be established along the route, especially at the 2 points in Ho Chi Minh City and Đồng Nai. We will have a good opportunity to explore waterways transport while waiting to develop railways and highways.
Long Thành International Airport extends to 5,000 hectares with an expected investment of more than $13 billion. In Phase 1, upon commencement of operations in 2026, Long Thành International Airport will have the capacity to handle 25 million passengers at 1.2 million tons of cargo annually. Currently, relevant parties are reviewing the current infrastructure to develop a feasible connectivity plan.
Now, in the past 2 weeks, 15 commercial banks have increased deposit interest rates. Some banks have raised savings interest rates for terms over 12 months to 9.5% per year, much higher than the entire system's average of 5.5% per year. This helps attract more cash flow from residents and stabilizes foreign exchange rates.
Increasing interest rates will help ensure savings are more attractive than other investment channels beset by risks, such as stocks, gold, and real estate. This will also help banks ensure capital resources for the last months of the year.
Credit demand is also showing signs of recovery, so banks will reserve capital sources to meet the increased credit demand in the second half of the year, especially when the State Bank assigned a credit growth target of 15% at the beginning of the year.
Since the beginning of the year, credit growth has only reached 2.41%. Banks have increased deposit interest rates to boost capital into the economy but kept lending interest rates low.
Many loans do not charge interest in the first term,
and most lending rates in the system are below 8%. These factors facilitate customers' access to banks' credit packages.
Lending rates have hit record lows. So many organizations and individuals have extended their loan periods, especially in consumer groups, raw material importers, priority sectors, and groups that benefit from public investment disbursement.
Businesses also want to fix these low interest rates for longer to operate business activities and manage interest expenses proactively.
Since the beginning of the year, the banking sector's deposit interest rate has increased by about 0.5% per year. That means holding Vietnamese currency is more valuable, especially when the Vietnam dong is stronger than other currencies compared to the USD.
The USD to VND exchange rate has been very stable since mid-May. Thanks to this stable exchange rate, businesses will regain confidence in planning their operations and save manufacturing costs.
Banks' digital solutions in deposit and lending transactions and measures to cut operating costs will help relieve pressure to increase loan interest rates while keeping deposit interest rates at a higher level.
Coming up next on VTV News. Specialized policies are activated to spur development of Central Highlands. And U.S. Center hands over Vietnamese martyrs' artifacts to families. Welcome back to VTV News. Now, Vietnam nominated Associate Professor Dr. Nguyễn Thị Lan Anh, Director General of the EC Institute of the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, to sit on the judging panel of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, or ITLOS, for the 2026 to 2035 term. This is also the first time Vietnam has run for this position. The ITLOS is an independent judicial body established by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea to adjudicate disputes arising from the interpretation and the application of the convention. The tribunal comprises 21 independent members elected from among nominees enjoying the highest reputation for fairness and integrity and of recognized competence in the law of the sea. The Central Highlands is a strategically important area that garners special attention from the party and state. Many of the party's major development policies and programs are activated to unlock the resources and potential of this important security region of Vietnam.
SPUR village was restored to its appearance during the era when Hero Dinh Nuc spearheaded the village's struggle against the French colonists. Rural tourism in the village helps preserve the local cultural identity and improve the villagers' livelihoods.
We are so glad that the state sponsored a fund to recreate houses resembling ones in the Resistance War era.
Poor households in Krông Na, a particularly disadvantaged border commune of Buôn Đôn District, Đắk Lắk Province, have been able to borrow capital from the Bank for Social Policies to raise cattle. Moreover, since the state-invested canals was built, 25 hectares of rice fields can be cultivated for up to 3 crops per year. Programs on poverty reduction and housing support have also transformed the lives of many Central Highland people.
I find the party and state's policies very efficient. The state directly provides farmers and fruit growers with cultivation techniques. With products from our coffee, rubber, and pepper growing areas, we can earn enough money to buy our own cars. The ethnic policies cover all aspects, from infrastructure, production assurance, and health care to education. People from ethnic groups also receive incentives from specialized recruitment and human resource management policies.
Over the past decade, the Politburo has issued 2 different resolutions to promote the development of the Central Highlands. Most recently, the Central Highlands Regional Planning for 2021 to 2030 period and Vision toward 2050 were approved to remove bottlenecks in traffic infrastructure. This initiative will untap the region's hidden resources, promising a breakthrough for the Central Highlands.
Now, over the last 6 months, an additional 1.22 million people have enrolled in health insurance, marking a 1.37% year-on-year increase. Health insurance coverage is anticipated to surpass 94% of the population by year-end. During this period, more than 89.5 million individuals have utilized health insurance for medical examinations and treatments, resulting in disbursements totaling nearly $2.63 billion from the Health Insurance Fund. Supportive policies have been implemented to facilitate participation in health insurance among individuals, households, and policy beneficiaries. Moreover, numerous communes and wards have successfully achieved the goal of ensuring their residents 100% health insurance coverage. Organ transplantation is the last resort to save the lives of patients who are no longer treatable. It is a second chance that organ donors and the efforts of doctors and nurses bring to patients. Since the beginning of this year, over 10 families have overcome a prejudice to donate their loved ones' organs. This number is equal to 2023, saving many other people's lives.
6 months have passed since the death of this couple's eldest son. To this day, they can still recall vividly the moment when doctors announced their son was brain dead and asked them to donate his organs. We kept thinking, is that right to take out his heart and organs?
Part of my son continues to exist in someone else, and that helps me overcome everything.
Although the family agreed to donate organs, doctors made every effort to save their son until the last minute. The son's organs have revived 5 critically ill patients, some of whom would have died if they had not received a transplant. Giving is holding forever is the line the family place on the desk of their deceased son. For those who remain, he continues to live on.
A part of my child's body is in another person. Hearing about successful transplants makes me feel like my child is still alive.
Instead of burying living organs or burning them, they can be used to save other lives. Organ transplantation is the last hope for critically ill patients. The process also holds significant meaning to the family as their loved ones are kept alive.
The U.S. Texas Tech University's Vietnam Center and Sam Johnson's Vietnam Archive have handed over a collection of 35 diaries and 7 letters belonging to Vietnamese soldiers. The presentation to the fallen soldiers' family is part of the reception ceremony for the Vietnam War legacy, which will be held in Hanoi on Wednesday. The last messages of martyrs and soldiers have brought great emotions to their families and relatives.
My sweetheart daughter, I was determined to join the front line in the South despite hardships and fierceness. I decided to join as there was no worthy time during this resistance period against the U.S. If I die, this would be my last words to you.
I was so emotional when reading the note my father had written to me.
Martyr Nguyễn Quang So went to the front line in 1967 when his daughter was an infant. In his diary, he expressed his homesickness and love for his family. The diary remained on the battlefield for nearly 60 years until it was recently returned to his daughter.
We received no news about my father at all. This diary gives us a glimmer of hope to find his grave.
The family of Martyr Nguyễn Quang So is one of the 12 families who received soldiers' relics at the Vietnam War Legacy Files reception ceremony. The event was jointly held by the Vietnam Center and Archives at Texas Tech University, USA, and the Heart of Vietnamese Soldiers organization. 4 portraits of martyrs were also presented to the families. These are the only remaining photos of martyrs before their deaths.
This is the second event that we've hosted with the Soldiers Heart Association. The collection we use, it's 2.7 million pages. It's more than 265,000 documents. And so we have to look at each document, determine if there's a diary, a journal, letters, and then of course, look at those, translate some of them, and of course, to return documents, legacy, diaries, journals, and letters to veterans and to family members.
The war has long ended, but the lingering pain continues in the martyrs' families with unidentified graves. The joint efforts by the US and Vietnam will contribute to integrating the archive information and returning home the remains of fallen soldiers.
Coming up next in our world news. G7 summit discusses global hot issues. And Russian president extends retaliatory measures against oil price cap. Now moving on to our world news, leaders of the group of 7 leading industrialized nations entered the second day of their meeting on Friday in Italy, where critical issues were being discussed. The meeting's focus shifted to China and its increasing participation in the global economy and other geopolitical issues. This marks Pope Francis' first participation in the summit, with talks focusing on artificial intelligence and migration. This year's G7 summit also saw the participation of leaders of several non-member countries, notably Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This change aims to emphasize the significance of global cooperation. Modi's presence bridges the G7 and the broader international community, particularly at the global south. It also showcases New Delhi's growing influence on the international stage. India has now become the world's fastest growing economy. Russian President Vladimir Putin has extended retaliatory measures against a price cap on his oil imposed by Western countries until the end of 2024, according to a decree published on the government's website on Thursday. The decree prohibits supplying Russian oil and petroleum products if the contracts include the price ceiling imposed by the group of 7 countries, the European Union and Australia. The decree, initially effective from February 1, 2023, has been extended multiple times. The latest extension was to remain in force until June 30, 2024. In December 2022, the group of 7 adopted the EU's price cap of $60 per barrel on Russian seaborne crude oil. Responding to this move, President Putin warned of a reduction in oil production. The USS Helena, a U.S. fast-attack nuclear submarine, surfaced in Cuba's Guantanamo Bay on Thursday, according to a Pentagon. The arrival comes a day after Russian naval forces arrived in Havana to conduct drills with the island nation. The fleet, comprised of a frigate, a nuclear-powered submarine, an oil tanker, and a rescue tug, will participate in naval exercises in the Caribbean Sea until June 17th. Cuba says none of the ships carry nuclear weapons and makes it clear that the fleet will strictly adhere to international regulations. For its part, Russia affirmed that there is no reason for any country, including the U.S., to worry about this exercise. Pentagon and U.S. State Department officials also note that Russia's activities were routine and did not threaten the U.S. Now, under our current climate warming scenarios, Canada's Hudson Bay polar bears could face further starvation and eventually local extinction in the coming decades. This is a statement made by a recent published study in the journal Nature Communications, Earth and Environment on Thursday. More to follow.
3 of the world's remaining 19 polar bear populations live in and around Canada's vast Hudson Bay, which connects to the Arctic and Atlantic Oceans. The region is unique compared to the Arctic as the bay thaws out entirely in summer, forcing bears to come ashore while they wait for the ice to return. The bears do not eat during this time, as they need sea ice to hunt seals.
Well, Hudson Bay is already a very unique region for the polar bears because they've already been forced to fast for at least, 3 to 4 months every year.
The extent of sea ice covering Canada's Hudson Bay hit a record low in May, intensifying concern on the fate of some 4,000 polar bears that live there, as new research adds to a growing scientific consensus that the region's bears are on track to disappear within decades.
Basically, our study shows that if we exceed 2 degrees Celsius of global warming, that is going to be very difficult for the bears in the southern and western Hudson Bay to survive because the fasting period is just going to get too long. And in many cases, it's going to start to exceed 180 days per year. And they're already fasting for 4 months out of the year, but to go another 2 months is going to really put a lot of stress on those animals.
The western Hudson Bay polar bear population has already fallen by half since 1987. If the world were to breach the UN Paris Agreement target of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures, the research suggests polar bears in western Hudson Bay and southern Hudson Bay would be in serious trouble.
Now let's move on to the weather forecast. And that's all the news we have for this hour. To rewatch our program, you can download our mobile app at VTVgo or check out our YouTube channel, VTV4Go. Thank you for watching and see you next time.